I thought everyone lived like this. You wake up every morning checking the emotional temperature of the house. Footsteps on the stairs tell you what kind of day it's going to be. Heavy and angry, or light and safe? You learn to read faces, voices, body language. You become fluent in moods that aren't yours. You were a child living in a war zone. You just didn't know it yet. You thought this was normal, that every kid walked on eggshells, that every family had landmines you had to navigate daily. This is about what it's actually like growing up in a toxic, dysfunctional home as a kid and teenager, before you had the words for what was happening, before you understood that other kids didn't live like this. This is your childhood, named. As a young child, you learned the house has a mood, and your job is to figure out what it is before you get hurt by it. You became an emotional meteorologist, predicting storms you were too small to escape. You learned to read. The sound of the car pulling into the driveway, fast and angry or slow and calm. Footsteps, heavy or light. The tone of hello when they got home, safe or dangerous. Whether the kitchen cabinets closed gently or slammed. If they were talking on the phone, what voice were they using? The silence, peaceful or ticking time bomb. You developed hypervigilance before you could spell the word. You learned that safety wasn't guaranteed. Some days were good, some days were a nightmare. You never knew what you'd get, so you watched, you monitored, you scanned for danger constantly. Other kids played, you survived. You were always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Even on good days, you couldn't relax, because good days could turn bad in an instant. You learned that peace was temporary. Danger was always one mood swing away. You weren't allowed to just be a kid. You became the peacekeeper, mediating your parents' fights, cheering everyone up, making sure no one got upset. It's okay, Mom. I didn't really want to go to that birthday party anyway. The perfect child. If you were just good enough, achieved enough, behaved well enough, maybe they'd be happy. Maybe they'd stop fighting. Maybe it would finally be okay. You thought you could fix them by being perfect. You couldn't. The invisible child. Small, quiet. Don't take up space. Don't have needs. Don't make waves. If they don't notice you, they can't hurt you. The caretaker. Parenting your younger siblings. Managing your parents' emotions. Being the adult when the adults couldn't be. The scapegoat. Everything wrong with the family was your fault. You were difficult, sensitive, the problem child. You weren't the problem. You were the truth teller they needed to silence. The entertainer. Keep everyone laughing. Keep it light. Distract from the dysfunction with humor and charm. You weren't a child. You were performing a role to survive, and you didn't even know you were doing it. As a teenager, things shift. You start noticing other families aren't like yours. You sleep over at a friend's house. Their parents talk to each other, laugh, don't scream, don't give each other the silent treatment for days. Wait, not everyone lives like this? You see parents apologize to their kids, parents who ask about their day and actually listen, parents who don't make everything about themselves, and you think, oh, the anger starts. As a kid, you thought it was normal. As a teen, you're starting to realize it's not, and you're pissed. Why do they get normal parents? Why do you have to walk on eggshells in your own home? But you can't leave yet. You're stuck, for years still. And that realization is suffocating. You saw the cage, but you couldn't open the door yet. You start pushing back. You're not just going to accept this anymore. You question, you challenge, you set tiny boundaries. And it makes everything worse, because your role was to keep the peace, to be easy, to not have needs. Now you're difficult, rebellious, disrespectful. Translation, You're becoming a person, and they don't like it. Teenage years in a toxic home are uniquely terrible because you're aware enough to see the dysfunction, but powerless to leave it. You're trapped with full awareness. That's its own kind of torture. What did this look like? You couldn't have friends over. Too unpredictable. Too embarrassing. What if your parent had an episode? What if they were inappropriate? What if your friends saw the real you? Easier to just not. You parented your parents. Coming home to check if mom's okay. Managing dad's moods. Being their therapist about their marriage. You had no privacy. They read your diary. Went through your phone. Monitored your every move. Questioned your friends. Controlled who you could see. Boundaries didn't exist. You were an extension of them, not a separate person. Your emotions weren't allowed. Angry? Don't you dare use that tone with me. Sad? You have nothing to be sad about. Anxious? You're being dramatic. You learned. Your feelings are wrong. Bury them. Your achievements were about them. You got into a good college. They took credit. You won an award. It was because of how they raised you. You succeeded. To make them look good. You failed. That was all you. You were gaslit constantly. That never happened. You're remembering wrong. You're too sensitive. You're making things up for attention. You started doubting your own mind. You wanted to escape but felt guilty, counting down the days until you could leave, planning your exit, but also feeling guilty. They need me. What will happen if I leave? Am I abandoning them? You weren't abandoning them. You were saving yourself. You felt completely alone. You couldn't tell anyone. They wouldn't understand. And what if it got back to your parents? So you performed normalcy at school and survived hell at home. You lived a double life. The you at school, fine. Together. Maybe even popular or successful. The you at home, walking on eggshells. Anxious, just trying to make it to tomorrow. Nobody knew both versions existed. Growing up in dysfunction teaches you things that aren't true, but you don't know they're lies yet. You learned love is conditional. You're only loved when you perform, when you make them look good, when you don't have needs. You learn to earn love, not receive it freely. Your needs are burdens. Asking for anything, attention, help, emotional support, makes you needy, selfish, demanding. You learn to need nothing, to take up no space. Conflict means disaster. Any disagreement leads to screaming, days of silent treatment, emotional punishment. You learned, keep the peace at all costs. Don't rock the boat. Your voice doesn't matter. You're responsible for others' emotions. If mom's upset, it's your job to fix it. If dad's angry, you caused it. You learned. You're responsible for managing everyone's feelings but your own. Saying no is cruel. Setting boundaries is disrespectful. Having limits is selfish. You learned your boundaries don't matter. Other people's comfort matters more. You can't trust yourself. Years of gaslighting taught you. Your perception is wrong. Your memory is faulty. Your feelings are invalid. You learned don't trust your own mind. Adults are unpredictable and unsafe. You can't count on them. They say one thing and do another. They're there for you when it suits them. You learned don't rely on anyone. You're on your own. Your role is to be useful. Your worth is in what you provide, what you do for others, how you make them feel. You learned you have no inherent value, only performance value. These lessons were lies, but you're still unlearning them as an adult. Growing up in constant stress and unpredictability doesn't just affect you emotionally. It changes your developing brain. Your nervous system learned the world is dangerous. People are unpredictable. Safety is temporary. Hypervigilance is survival. You developed complex PTSD before you knew what to call it. People-pleasing because it kept you safe. Fawning response. Make others happy so they don't hurt you. difficulty regulating emotions because yours were never validated, relationship issues because you learned love is conditional and people are unsafe, anxiety because danger was always one mood swing away, depression because you learned you don't matter, perfectionism because maybe if you were perfect enough, they'd love you, imposter syndrome because your achievements were never truly yours, trust issues because the people who should have protected you didn't. You weren't born broken. You were broken by an environment you couldn't escape. As a kid and teen in that environment, you didn't know. This wasn't your fault. You thought, if I was just better, smarter, quieter, easier, they'd be happy. The fighting would stop. Everything would be okay. You spent your childhood trying to fix something that was never yours to fix. You weren't too sensitive. You were having a normal reaction to abnormal circumstances. You weren't difficult. You were a child with needs in an environment that punished needs. You weren't the problem. You were the scapegoat for their dysfunction. Other kids really didn't live like this. Your normal was trauma. Their normal was safety. You deserved better. You deserved parents who regulated their own emotions, who created safety, who saw you as a person, not a tool or a burden. You were doing the best you could. Surviving that environment took incredible strength. You did what you had to do to make it through. The fact that you survived means you're stronger than you know. It wasn't going to get better while you were there. You couldn't fix them. You couldn't love them into health. You couldn't perform your way into safety. The only way out was out. You would spend years healing from what they did. Adulthood wouldn't magically fix the damage. You'd have to actively heal from what growing up like that did to you, but you would make it. You'd get out. You'd build a different life. You'd learn what safety feels like. You survived your childhood. Now you get to heal from it. To the kid you were, you deserve to just be a kid, not a peacekeeper, not a caretaker, not a therapist, not a punching bag. You deserve to feel safe in your own home, to not have to check the emotional temperature every morning, to not walk on eggshells, to not monitor everyone's moods. You deserve parents who took care of themselves, not a child managing adult emotions. You deserve to have needs and have them met, without guilt, without being called selfish. You deserve to make mistakes, without it being the end of the world, without punishment that didn't fit, without being made to feel worthless. You deserved unconditional love, not performance-based approval. You deserved a childhood. You got survival training instead. And that's not your fault. Here's what growing up in that environment also gave you. Resilience you didn't ask for, but developed anyway. Empathy, because you know what it's like to hurt. Awareness, you can read a room in seconds. Strength, surviving that took incredible courage. Determination to not repeat the cycle. The ability to spot toxic dynamics because you lived them. Deep capacity for authentic connection when you find safe people. You didn't just survive. You're using what you learned to build something different. You're breaking the cycle. The fact that you're watching this, learning, healing, means you're already doing it differently. Your childhood was stolen. Your adulthood is yours. Use it to build the safety you never had. If you grew up in a toxic home, comment, "I survived" for your younger self, for the kid who got through something they shouldn't have had to. Subscribe for more content on healing from childhood trauma. You were a child in a war zone. The fact that you survived means something. To the kid you were, you did nothing wrong. You deserved better, and you made it. Now heal.